The way he looks at me. It was late in the evening when he came to me, his small form silhouetted by the dim light from the hallway. I had just finished a long day. Work, chores, dealing with the endless messes that seemed to pile up, no matter how hard I tried to keep everything in order. My mind was tired, my patience worn thin, but I had to be the parent. I had to be the good parent, the one who could balance everything, who could love all my children equally. But some days it felt impossible. Some days the love just didn't seem to come as easily. "Why don't you love me like my sisters?" he asked, his voice small and tremulous, the words heavy with confusion and hurt. His face was streaked with tears, his wide brown eyes filled with the kind of sadness that no child should ever have to bear. I froze, caught off guard by the question. It wasn't something I had been prepared for, at least not so soon. The words hung in the air like a bitter, unwelcome mist. They stung more than they should have, more than I was willing to admit. I didn't know how to answer at first. I didn't want to lie, but I didn't want to hurt him either. I looked at his tear-streaked face, at the innocence in his eyes, and felt something shift deep inside me. A pressure, a pang of something I couldn't quite name. "It's just that you're a boy," I explained, my voice steady, almost detached, as if I were speaking a truth I had learned long ago. "And I'm not really into boys." The words came out smoothly, as though I had said them 100 times before, rehearsed in my mind. But the moment they left my lips, I saw his expression change. His eyes, once filled with confusion, became something else, something darker, something more knowing. I watched him closely as he processed my words, his small hands wringing in front of him. He didn't respond right away, just stared at me as though trying to make sense of what I had said. "But I'm your son," he whispered, his voice so soft I could barely hear it. "I'm your son." I could feel the tension rising between us, a sickening knot in my stomach. I had done everything I could to keep the line clear, to maintain the boundary between us. I loved him, yes, but he was a boy, and I wasn't like that. "You are," I said, my tone firm now, a hint of impatience creeping in. "But I'm not the same as your sisters. I'm different. You'll understand when you're older." He blinked up at me, the tears still glistening on his cheeks, his small hands trembling at his sides. "I don't want to be different," he said, his voice breaking. "Why can't you love me like you love them?" I could see him in that moment, trying to bridge the gap that separated us, trying to reach out to me in a way that a boy shouldn't have to. But I wasn't sure he would ever understand. I wasn't sure I understood it myself. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself, to push away the discomfort that churned inside me. "You don't need to worry about that. You're still my son. I still care about you. But the way I care, it's just different, okay?" His lips quivered, and for a moment I saw the fragile hope in his eyes begin to falter. He took a step back, then another, his little hands curling into fists. His expression twisted into something desperate, something that made my chest tighten, my heart thud painfully in my rib cage. "You're not my mother," he said, his voice barely a whisper, but it hit me like a slap. The words hung in the air, and I realized too late that I had crossed a line. In that moment, I understood what I had done to him, what I had made him feel. It wasn't just about his rejection. It wasn't just about my cold, dismissive words. It was about me. It was about how I had always treated him, how I had always looked at him with a certain distance, a distance I never had with his sisters, a distance I couldn't explain. I felt the weight of that realization press down on me, and I wanted to apologize, to take it all back, but the words wouldn't come. I was frozen, trapped. He turned then, his small form retreating into the darkness of the hallway, and for a brief moment I considered following him. But I didn't. I couldn't. Instead, I remained rooted in the spot, my heart pounding, my mind spinning with the realization of what had just happened, what had been happening all along. When I finally went to bed that night, I lay in the dark, my body rigid and my thoughts heavy. I heard the soft sound of his breathing from across the hall, the faint sound of his sobs muffled by the walls. I wanted to go to him. I wanted to hold him and tell him it would be okay, that I loved him. but I didn't. I couldn't. The truth was that I couldn't love him the way I should. I couldn't love him like I loved his sisters. And deep down, I knew that was something I'd never be able to change.